Welcome back to another episode of IndieFilm Insider. My name is Roncar, DP and producer here with
Jake Rossbell, a writer and director, and today we talked with Shaan Sylvain. Shaan is an intimacy coordinator who is studying film at Dodge College in Southern California. In this episode, we discuss the importance of having an intimacy coordinator, what they do, and the controversies surrounding Anora's production.
This is a really solid episode with a bunch of informational and educational content. So if you enjoy what we're doing, be sure to hit a like and subscribe on this video. And without further ado, let's hop right into our conversation with Shaan Sylvain.
Shaan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So sort of tell us about yourself and like kind of what you do and just about being like an intimacy coordinator and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so my name is Shaan, as you know, and I go to Dodge School of Film and Media Arts. It's a long, annoying name, but it's at Chapman University, which is down in Orange County, so quite far away from here, but still California. And I started my intimacy coordination journey when I was a freshman, so really quite early on. First semester that I got to school, I was 18, and I tried it out, and it was something that I realized I really liked, and it's becoming a very relevant position in the industry currently. Yeah. So yeah, and since then it's something I realized I want to step into like post-grad as well. So I've been taking steps to get my private certification, and I'm on a lot of independent and like Chapman University sets and other university sets as well. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does an intimacy coordinator like actually do?
Okay, so an intimacy coordinator is basically like a position on set that isn't like an actor's director, an actor's producer, or anyone else who is going to have like an inherent power dynamic over them. And you're an advocate for the directors during like intimate scenes or even like rehearsal of intimate scenes, both on and off set. And that can mean a wide variety of things. I mean, that means that during rehearsals and other things like that, I'm in charge of making sure that the actors feel comfortable with not just like their director, but also with the person they're working with, like their actor or multiple actors that are working together. And basically my job is to make sure that consent is being heard and practiced, and we go through like lots of different exercises that help that. And then that makes the actual shoot days very easy, no matter what it is that you're actually filming or trying to achieve. Yeah.
That's cool, because we also had a guest on our show. Like I think it was like the third episode, and he was a like line producer, director, kind of does a bunch of different things. But he said that like they had to get an intimacy coordinator because there was a scene where like a kid hugs a parent like in the story.
Yeah.
I found that very interesting because I think some people think that an intimacy coordinator is only for like sex scenes.
Yeah, definitely.
But like what else do you do beyond just like that? Because I think a lot of people like don't really actually know like the sort of like intricate things with that, you know?
No, totally. I think because it's such a new position in the industry, a lot of people don't know the kind of like niches it entails. So like that's a great example because one of my first sets I was on, I was there for a child actor and he was only 5, but he was great. And in the short film, he was getting kind of like smothered in kisses from his like aunt and uncle. And when I was first asked to work on that set, I thought, well, that's not right. Like that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Because even then I didn't really know. But as time has gone on, I think the positions become more defined as like any time you have like an intimate interaction or kind of like power dynamic. And that's a great example of that, where it's like, an underage kid working with fully grown adults. You need someone there who's like besides a studio teacher, who's an advocate for that person. But it's definitely has nothing to do with sex and nothing to do with kind of like romantic intimacy. But you still, if you feel like you need one, you basically can and should have one. That's like what it's come down to.
Because I don't know, that sounds like a bit of a red flag when someone's like, we had a scene with a kid,
a child,
and we needed an intimacy coordinator. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
it definitely came off a little bit like, are you sure that I'm needed for this? But the answer is yes, like totally.
Yeah, just kind of like a person who is making sure the actors are comfortable and the scenes going as smooth as possible, like regardless of what's happening with the scenes. You said it's a relatively new like position within the industry. How new are we talking?
Well, okay, so when I was a freshman, it had only been coined about 5 years prior, and that was in 2022. So now it's a bit older, but it's still, I mean, in comparison to like being a camera operator, it is literally like a baby in the eyes of like the whole industry and key crew and crew in general. And it's also something that I think is a bit controversial, which is, it shouldn't be, and I believe that it shouldn't be, but there are a lot of sets like right now, like hot movies that people are talking about where they didn't have an intimacy coordinator. Like everyone's talked about Anora
and
how
that,
they didn't have one. We can get into that later, but it's still a position that isn't necessarily required. And I mean, that also speaks to how new it is, I think, and how it's not something that goes beyond like SAG recommendation. You know what I'm saying? So still definitely figuring out, I guess, itself in a way, and like what it means to need one and be one. Yeah, it's an evolving position.
At some point, would you like to see SAG mandate it?
Yes, I think that would be great, especially because if it became like a unionized position, people would have like a base pay, and also it probably wouldn't cost as much to get certified. Because right now, standing, it's like $7,000, which as a film student, that's like buy like I can't,
millions,
right? Totally, yeah. So if it was standardized, it'd probably be less. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because I don't know. I don't think I really knew that much about it until more recently. And Owen and I have an infamous film that we did where like it's like it's fine. It was fine. It was just like basically there's like it opens with a sex the entire movie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's called Bed Play.
Okay.
And the entire film is this character named Devonte. Yeah, Devonte. And he's just like, I don't know, just having sex with his girlfriend the whole time, and then I don't know, but it opens with a sex scene.
Yeah.
And the way we did that was like we just like have them like rock the bed.
Yeah.
We like zoomed into like it looks totally fake.
Okay.
Yeah,
but,
it's so bad.
Yeah. Because I think that's like another thing too with like that though is like an intimacy coordinator maybe can kind of step in and make it like actually like look more like genuine.
Yeah.
Because I think that like when you leave it up to like like two indie filmmakers who are like obviously we're trying to be like sensitive to everyone too. We don't want to be like don't do anything weird.
Yeah.
We're like just like this is what we got.
Yeah.
But is that like kind of a thing that an intimacy coordinator can kind of like open up the doors to like making like look more genuine?
Yeah, definitely.
Because they can kind of like actually coordinate with and speak for the actors and for everyone on. Yeah.
That's definitely a great point to bring up, because actually a big part of the position that you can also get professional training in is directing. So you're a coordinator in the way that you are like making sure everything is a-okay on set.
Yeah.
But also you're a director in the way that, let's say your director isn't necessarily comfortable talking about the sex scene or whatever scene with the actors and exactly like what they want from them. Because, saying words that have to do with intimacy and sex can be taboo. Like it can be embarrassing to talk about, especially if you're talking with like strangers or people you don't know. So part of my job would also be to help the director explain like what it is they want to be like seeing from the actors and how it would look more realistic if maybe you tried this instead, or this would be more comfortable for you like physically. And that's definitely a part of the job that I'm constantly like learning and relearning, and depending on the set it changes every time. But I mean, directing is a huge part of it. But then also in that same regard, directors have a misconception that if they like hire an intimacy coordinator, the intimacy coordinator is going to like take over or like take away from what they want, or make it more like, for lack of a better term, like PC, or whatever it is that they're there.
Like,
if it's like super intense, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to hire them because they're gonna like,
or like they're there to restrain the director in some way,
which is really not true at all. I've had directors where they have like totally known exactly what it is they want to see. They're comfortable speaking with their actors, and I'm more like there for the consent work, the exercises beforehand. But I've had directors who are also like, I don't really know how to tell my actor this. Like, could you do it for me? And that's like a big part of it as well.
Interesting. Because like, who are you like actually on set for? Like, are you kind of like assigned to someone? Are you like kind of like sort of like chilling with someone? Like, oh, I'm going to be more with this actor than this actor. Or like, I guess you're probably more there for everyone. But
that's I mean, very true. I think I've learned, and it's become very mandatory, I guess, to go over this during training, that you are there for everyone, which is something that I actually initially didn't know. Like I didn't understand that about intimacy coordination. Like 3 years ago, I thought you were truly there for your actors.
Yeah.
Because that's like the intuitive assumption, I think.
Yeah.
And you definitely are there for the actors. Like they're your first priority and you are working with them. But an intimacy coordinator is trained in so many ways that you can be there for literally anyone on set. I mean, there could be something happening and someone who's an art PA could come up to me and say like, hey, this happened, it's making me really uncomfortable, or like, I don't know how to feel about this, or, and I'm trained in all the ways that I could help them, not just the actors or just talking with the director, which that's also something that I think I wouldn't have known without taking training and like going through just my own experiences on set. But it's pretty cool. It's a very like versatile position. Yeah.
I was thinking because obviously it's kind of like an HR position almost for like everybody on set.
Yeah.
We obviously mentioned the like kid getting hugged by the parent or whatever. Do you think? I'm just curious on this end. Like for the most of the jobs that you work as a intimacy coordinator for, is that kind of like the edge case? Is the majority of the stuff like sex scenes?
Yeah, I would definitely say. I think I have a bit of a skewed perception of what the majority is because in film school there's not a lot of like really crazy, vulgar, intimate sex scenes happening. Right. Not that we're not allowed to film stuff like that, but I think the average student, when they get their one shot at a thesis, doesn't maybe want to put that in there, or maybe they shy away from it.
Yeah.
So my experience on set has been a lot of kind of like what you said about like the edge of, examples. And I mean, I've been on set for things like that I maybe wouldn't necessarily be on set for in the future. Just a personal decision and like in terms of like getting paid for things like hugging and other things like that, which is totally valid. And like I said earlier, if you need an intimacy coordinator, no matter what the content is, like you need one. But in industry, the majority has to do with kissing, nudity, and sex. Whereas at film school, it's really like just maybe kissing kids, which again sounds horrible, but you know what I mean by that.
Right.
Yeah, maybe on the like quote unquote tamer side of things, but it's still all great experience.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I think it's a very there's a lot of misconceptions about it.
Totally.
And I think I kind of had a lot of misconceptions about it, like also going into it. Because that is something I saw. I mean, we'll get into Anora. Maybe we'll get into it now. Who knows? But
yeah.
I saw some people talking about it, and they're like, yeah, it's an intimacy coordinator is not just there for like one actor or like two actors. They're kind of there for everyone.
Yeah.
And like I guess I like just never really thought about that way.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned like sort of being more like somewhat of a director, kind of with the intimacy coordinator role. Like you kind of are like is it fair to say like you're sort of like the director of like sex scenes or like scenes like that kind of?
I would say that there's definitely a hand in directing sex scenes and like scenes with any kind of like touching and intimacy. However, the director is still the director. And that's not something that like suddenly, okay, like now it's my turn. It's more like we're there to kind of help push what is wanting to be seen by the director. And I'm someone who like wants to be a director, period. So I think the kind of like stepping stone from being an intimacy coordinator into directing is a great one because you're already working with directors in general, but also you like have a hand in like what the scene actually looks like and like talking with the actors. But I would say like, I would never say, okay, yes, I'm like a director in this position. Honestly, that might be a little bit like, if I say that, directors might be like, "Oh, we don't like that," which is fair. But you definitely have a big role in that regard.
Yeah, you don't want to sound like pretentious about.
Yeah, like yes, I am the director. Like definitely not.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah, I think we can hop into Anora right now, real quick.
I think we should. I would love to do that.
I'm guessing you have some thoughts on it. Can you just give us some context for people who don't necessarily know what we would be talking about in regards to Anora and an intimacy coordinator?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so Anora was just won Best Picture for 2024. Yes?
I think so.
Yes. The Oscars being 2025 and then like, I always mix that up. But it's Sean Baker's most recent movie and he wrote, directed, produced, and edited it, which is kind of crazy. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sean Baker's work, but he is always making movies about sex workers.
Yeah.
So like all of those other films, Anora was about a sex worker, played by Mikey Madison, who is a very talented 25-year-old. And I have so much respect for her. Anything I say is not a dig at her because she is seriously like such a determined and amazing actress. However, I did think it's a little strange that Sean Baker didn't provide an intimacy coordinator for the film just because the film has so many, first of all, sex scenes in it, but a lot of nudity and a lot of kind of like, if it's not sex, it's more like simulated, exotic dancing. I'm assuming you both saw it.
I've seen it.
I actually have not seen it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe watch it.
I should.
Okay. But What did you think? Can I ask just what you thought of it?
Just of the movie as a whole, or
yeah,
like
sure.
as the success?
Honestly, like as a whole, yeah.
I think because like the kind of the first like third of the movie is just kind of like softcore porn.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I thought that dragged on for a little too long for my taste.
Okay.
I kind of got the vibe of like what he like the world and the world that the character of Annie or Anora inhabits. Like I got that within the first like 10 minutes. I don't necessarily think it had to go on for as long as it did.
Sure.
The actual story of it, I liked it. Like I said, the first part dragged on a little bit too long for me, but I liked it as far as the writing and direction of it goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you not like it?
It's a film that I kind of agree with certain things you said, and it's not that I didn't necessarily like the story. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. Because I think you should watch any nominated movie for Best Picture and Best Picture winner, whether or not they're, the best picture.
Yeah.
But they're nominated and they won for a reason. However, it's one of those movies where the more I watch it, the more I actually don't really like it. And I know a lot of people who love it, so I'm not really going to go into like detail because everyone obviously has their own opinion and experience of the film.
Yeah.
But I would say, specifically in terms of having an intimacy coordinator versus not having one, that was a film where I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. Like you should have one, even though there's a Variety interview where Mikey Madison is saying like, well, I just felt really comfortable with my, like, I forget his name, but the actor who played her love interest. And Shaan made it a very comfortable situation, and I didn't feel the need to have anyone else there. And while I totally like understand and support what the actors feel and what they like or want, which is like, that's like the main part of my job, so I'm always going to listen to them. It's also very apparent that Shaan kept asking if they felt like they needed one, which is not something that directors should be doing. Like an intimacy coordinator should be provided, especially if your actors are naked, especially if they're in simulated sex scenes. And that's what we're taught in training. So in my brain, like red flags went off when I heard that.
Yeah.
But also the actors they haven't come out and said like, I was really uncomfortable and this was a bad experience. So there's something to be said about that as well, I think.
Yeah.
And also for what it's worth, I'm not saying I loved the movie. It was a fine movie. I don't think it deserved Best Picture personally out of any of the 10 up there.
Okay, sure.
But like I didn't hate it for what it's worth.
Yeah. Okay.
In terms of like what you just mentioned with like regards to intimacy coordinator, like Jake and I were talking about it, and we actually thought that something that really interesting point. I don't know if there were any specific angles like of what I'm gonna reference in this, but like a camera operator who's like right there as like a simulated sex scene, possibly nudity is happening.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if like they'll be comfortable enough to speak up.
Right.
Like, hey, can we get a different angle? I'm not necessarily comfortable with this, especially as they're seen kind of as like a below the line technical role.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point to bring up, because there are so many, especially camera operators specifically, because they're on the front lines. Like they're going to be seeing everything that the director wants to be seen, and if there's simulated sex, well, they're going to be right up in there catching all of that. And that's a very good point to bring up, because part of my job would be to also make sure that that person is like being heard, feeling okay, doing what they're doing. And if they were to be like, hey, I don't really know how I feel about this, they could have someone on set who won't jeopardize maybe their position or, the integrity of what they're doing with the film. And that would be where an intimacy coordinator could come in, not just for the actors, but like you said, for the DP. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not seen Anora, but I did find that really weird when I learned that.
Yeah.
It seems like if you're going to have any film have an intimacy coordinator, that seems like the film to have one on.
Right.
Just like from what I've heard and like the context of like what the story's about. But I find that strange that he's like, I kept asking. It's like, if you're unsure, why not just provide one? Why not just get one?
Yeah,
and like that just seems weird. And then also like him talking with Mikey Madison about it or whatever, like that seems a bit like, hey, do you want an intimacy coordinator? Do you want one? Like,
right.
And then she's like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, okay, great. We don't like,
exactly. Yeah.
It seems like there's a bit of a power dynamic when you're the director, and I think his wife produced it too. And I'm pretty sure that's like the case as well. And I think they both talk to her. It's like when you have the director and the producer, and they're like married or whatever, and they're like, hey, do you want one? And I don't know if I'd be like, I don't know. It just seems weird. It seems like a
absolutely.
weird situation.
That's a huge part of what we're taught is there's this kind of like pressure to say yes, especially if you're a young actress or maybe this is like your first like big role. And I don't know if you guys know this about Anora, but Sean Baker wrote that movie and Anora's character for Mikey Madison specifically. So to already have a director being like coming to you and being like, I've written this movie for you. Can you please act in this movie as this character? And then being like, hey, by the way, do you feel like you need an intimacy coordinator?
Yeah.
You're so right about there being like a huge power dynamic there, because I would feel obligated to be like, what? No, like I'm fine. I can prove myself to this director, and that happens all the time on so many different sets in the past and now and probably in the future, unfortunately. But yeah.
I mean, that's her first, I think, major role. I mean, I think she was in like.
She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. But all as like, secondary.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. And I don't know. It seems like hard to like kind of pass that up if that's like kind of like what the deal is. Like, hey, also that's kind of weird. Like, hey, I have a film for you. Do you want to act in it? Like, oh, what it's about? Like, yeah, you're just like a sex worker the whole time.
I also thought that was a little strange when she said that. I was like, I don't know how flattering that is, but also I'm not an actress, so maybe that role was very appealing and. I mean, she killed it, so there's that.
Yeah. For what it's worth, like the acting in that movie wasn't like only sex on her end. Like
totally.
there was a ton of like personality involved in that character that I'm not sure anyone could have pulled it off.
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely didn't need someone, and I guess Shaan thought she was the good one for the role. I guess, but like, do you find it's weird that like? Because obviously he kind of made his career focusing on films about sex workers.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if you have any personal opinions on that or not, but I guess if Shaan,
no, she doesn't.
She doesn't.
No, I like definitely, and this is something that I want to kind of tread carefully about because, like I said, I mean, Sean Baker he's a very well established director, and he's also very well liked. He's someone who I think he has made amazing films. I mean, I don't know if you've seen like The Florida Project or Tangerine, but those are both like.
I did not know that was him.
Yes, like
okay,
great. I mean, it's truly amazing movies. But I think if all of your films are about sex workers and you don't really necessarily have a tie to that world besides just, wanting to tell their stories, which is valid, at some point, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Yeah. And that might just be a personal opinion because I think. Again, wanting to tell people's stories that's great and that's totally valid. And he, focuses on like this specific group of people. But the more I think about it and time goes on and think about Anora specifically, which is all fiction, I just don't really know how to feel about this man who keeps making movies about female sex workers. Yeah. And to be fair, Red Rocket is about a man, but it still revolves around a young girl in the end. So like, I don't know. And he seems to have a good head on his shoulders and obviously do not know this person personally.
Right.
But it is a little off-putting, especially if you don't want to have an intimacy coordinator on set.
Yeah.
And I don't know. How do you guys feel about it?
Yeah.
I don't I think it's weird. I think it's maybe a little strange. Also, it's weird that like he's making films about like women in like exploitative industries.
Yes.
And then
in Hollywood,
in Hollywood, being a Hollywood director, and then also doing the same weird. I mean, I'm not trying to accuse him of like doing anything that's like too weird. I mean, I do think that's weird. I don't care. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think it is weird to like not just have one just as like a just for no like just to have one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I do find that weird, and I find it weird. I find it just ironic for Anora, a film about sex work, to have like just like. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That does seem weird to me. And I don't really know much about like intimacy coordinators.
Yeah.
I'm learning more about it, but
honestly, I think part of the argument might be that sex workers don't have an intimacy coordinator, period. And a lot of the actors that Shaan, I know for a fact that in Anora, this is true. I don't know about all of his movies, but I know about most of them. He hires real sex workers to work in them, and Mikey isn't one, but all of the other girls that you saw in the film like were
like the extras.
Yes. And I understand why part of it is like, well, they don't have intimacy coordinators, they are sex workers and this is what they do. However, this is still like a film set in Hollywood, and
it's fake.
Yeah. So I don't think it's valid to be like, well, in real life, like, you know, this is not real. Yeah.
That's definitely not a good argument.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, oh, we're making a war film, so we're gonna have you enlist for a couple months and come back to us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna use real bullets to enhance the feeling of being us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna actually shoot you. Yeah, no, that's crazy. But
yeah.
I
don't know. That does seem weird to me. Like, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I also can't really. I probably have to think a little bit more on it, but to have your whole career dedicated to one specific niche, because like when I think of like directors who have an MO, like Sean Baker has one with sex workers, like my mind goes to like styles, like Tarantino and over the top violence,
totally,
Nolan and messing with time. I can't like none of them have like specific like hyper like genres that they're hyper fixating on, or like types of people that they're doing that. So I don't know. I just think like maybe do one or two and then move on to something else. Like if he wants to do it, then I guess he's gonna do it.
Right.
I can't talk him out of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely off-putting to me.
Yeah, that's definitely like his niche and like his. I don't know. He probably feels very inspired by sex workers, which is totally understandable. But I think in the difference between him and then like directors who have like, you know, their thing is like you said, this is kind of like exploitative in a way, which is interesting because when Christopher Nolan makes a movie that ties back to like physics and time, I've never been like, that's weird. You know, I've never had that thought that's like, oh, that's kind of uncomfortable. Right. But I have thought that about Sean Baker before. And that's I don't know, maybe that's just a personal opinion, but yeah, that's just how I feel. I'm glad that you guys also think it's a bit strange because every time I say this, you know, somebody loves him a lot and it's valid. I mean, he's a very well established director, but it is a little bit, especially as a woman, I'm like, what is going on there?
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't really. I think it's also like if you can't like if you can like someone's work, you can like what they do like as a director, and you can also separate like maybe they're weird, maybe they do weird things.
Yeah,
you know, like I mean, this is like true for a lot of like, you know, just like white indie filmmakers, who are, like Owen and I, is like you know, you see like a Quentin Tarantino film and you're like, oh, I want to do that, you know, like that's like this very like when I was like 15, I saw like one of those films and I'm like, oh, cool, but like you know, dude is kind of weird. Like with feet, you know, like,
definitely. I was gonna say like they all have their like
weird
thing, like themes that they do in their movies, but it's never like Quentin Tarantino's never made a movie about feet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
close,
what I was thinking. Yeah.
He's very close.
Yeah. Well, they come up a lot. That's for sure.
I bet if you like cut all the feet shots together, it probably would be like a feature length film.
Now that you say that, honestly, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So someone do that. Someone make a montage.
Honestly, like send that over if anyone does that. Yeah.
To the private DMs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like you can simultaneously think Pulp Fiction is like an amazing movie, and also think it was weird that he cast himself as a character and dropped the hard R.
Definitely. Multiple. Yes.
Several, yeah.
I think that a lot actually about him, and I'm like, why doesn't anyone talk about that? But as you know, famous directors go.
It's actually I saw this one screenshot. It was like just a bunch of like roles that Tarantino did, and one of them it was like Nazi officer, and then it was, and he directs his own films. He puts himself in those roles. It was like Nazi officer, like pedophile number 2.
Right.
I'm like, what? Like, why is there a second pedophile in your movie?
I was gonna say, there's like, it takes a certain kind of person to want to do that.
I know.
And you can be a genius, but you can be also really strange. I think a lot of geniuses are weird. And he's definitely up there on that list.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I don't know. It's a little strange.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I like to put myself in my films when I can, but I like usually it's just me walking away. It's not me like doing some weird sex crime.
Totally. You know? Yeah. Or like saying slurs on camera.
Yeah. Or saying racial slurs.
That's admirable that you don't do that.
Yeah.
Just wait for our next movie.
Exactly.
Like, guys, you have no idea what's coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think Hollywood as a whole, and especially like movies, has become over-sexualized in general?
Oh, wow. Hollywood as a whole, I think has always been that way. Honestly, I think sexualization of people in film, outside of film, you know, actors, like whoever is on screen, whoever's not on screen, that has been such a big core of the industry. And whether we like talking about it or not, I mean, in a weird way, it gets you places and it also kind of like can ruin your career. I mean, we could even go into talking about like age of women and like, you know, sex appeal and all of that. And so for the Hollywood aspect, totally. I think I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, it's getting better. Like things are getting better because it's always going to be a part of the industry. I think I can't speak about other industries specifically, but I know that in entertainment and in film, where we value like aesthetics and how people look, and we put too much like an emphasis on that, that's always going to come with a lot of issues, like surrounding morality and you know, unfortunately, like things with sexuality and assault and all of that, and power dynamics, both like on and offset. But in terms of the actual film content, I think, okay, one of the best parts about, I'm a film studies major. I'm not actually in production at Dodge, so I have like a weirdly large amount of knowledge about like analysis and criticism and things like that. We've learned that film has always been about sex. Like film has always centered around sex. Like we'll go back and watch like French black and white films from like the 20s. So much sex, so much nudity, a lot of real sex also, which is like, I mean, obviously not allowed anymore, at least in America.
Yeah.
And I'd like to sit here and be like, yeah, totally. Like, you know, the internet has made us all like pervs and crazy and weird, but film has always been really freaky. And I think if anything, maybe we've just kind of loosened up a bit on regulations and conservatism, because in like the 30s and 40s, we put a cap on like what could be shown on screen. But now we have stuff like Game of Thrones, which totally flipped that back, you know? So I don't know if that even answers your question, but I think that it's kind of always been this way. And we might be coming back to a time where things being censored isn't as like popular, or maybe like people are allowing us to see more, you know? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was more asking like your opinion.
Oh, okay.
Because I know my girlfriend, like like whenever she watches a movie and there's like a sex scene, and she's like, "Why is that here?"
Okay.
Because like I'm one of the people who like I can recognize when it is or is not necessary from a plot standpoint.
Okay, sure.
But like a lot of people think that none of it is necessary at all.
Okay.
That it's just for the male gaze or whatever be it.
I would, and just in my opinion, then I would say I don't think we're seeing like a ton of unnecessary sex scenes. And I mean, I've watched like, you know, The Boys and like I said, Game of Thrones and shows where they do kind of like put that shock factor in.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, why are they showing us this?
Yeah.
But I've never been like, this really doesn't need to exist, or this is like becoming a thing, because I do think sex and themes about sex are there in movies for a reason. And obviously that's part of my job. So if that, you know, went away, then there would be a huge chunk of it. Yeah, unemployed. So I guess I kind of have to say like, keep the sex in the films. But that, I don't know, that's how I feel. But I do hear what you're saying about there are times where it's like, this is not helping us in any way. This isn't like developing the characters or the plot.
Yeah.
But that's always going to happen.
The individuals who are intimacy coordinators, do you find them to be, is there any like breakdown? Like what is the split, I guess, between like men and women in that job?
Okay, so I will say right now, at least, it's very female heavy, which is like, I think, I don't know if you guys assumed that, but that's something that I kind of thought like, yeah, that makes a bit of sense to me.
It makes sense to me.
Just, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but also like making people comfortable, I think, is something that
that meant a terrible act.
No,
that meant to like to do.
Yeah, no, but it's like, I don't know. Maybe this is just because also I'm a woman, but if I was an actress and I had to get naked, but let's say like my male counterpart didn't, I wouldn't really want a man being like, you're safe, like you're fine, you know. But that's also, I would never say I think that men shouldn't be intimacy coordinators, because I have met so many men who are great intimacy coordinators and have so much experience, and they are trained in the exact same way. So everything they say, like I've said, and it is just as effective.
Yeah.
I think that it's just for some reason right now, maybe more of a position that women have been involved in, or maybe it's more like, maybe part of it might stem from guys thinking like that they shouldn't be in that position, perhaps, or maybe it's like, oh, that's not really worth my time or something. Yeah. I'm not really sure. And I think that's something that 10 years down the line, either we'll see a lot of change in, or I will have a more in-depth answer.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of intuitively thought that as well. And I don't know how I feel about that. Like it seems like I think there's probably a lot of reasons why.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know. It also seems like kind of sad.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know what that would. I don't know. I don't know. It's like a lot of things, but like, there's a lot of reasons why it's sad too. You know,
yeah,
like,
definitely.
is it like do only like women care about like safety on set?
That's one aspect. Yeah.
Like that
like
that
it
is,
might not be promoted to men in the same way, so they might not feel like they should even try.
Yeah, like that's kind of like the first thing I thought of. Is it sort of just like stemming from that, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the first thing I thought of was like maybe just like general interest in it.
Right.
It's the same thing with like hair and makeup artists, for example. Like those in film sets are predominantly women.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe just because it's what they're drawn to, and then like for example, like any people who like build the sets, probably mostly men. Same thing with like the G&E departments, like the electrical departments and the gaffers and the grips and all that. But that is actually a very interesting point about how like maybe it might be like a self-limiting thing too, because like I think you mentioned like men thinking that like they might not be hired or liked or appreciated in that role because of that aspect that you mentioned. Like kind of like a self-limiting thing too.
Definitely. I mean, I think part of it is also being exposed to this role as like an option, you know, because it's not something that I was taught in film school, and there are no at least classes at my school about intimacy coordination yet. Doesn't mean there won't be, but I think part of the reason why I'm literally the only practicing intimacy coordinator at Dodge is because people just haven't had that door opened up for them. Like they haven't had the chance to become educated about it. But I think both men and women would be interested in the position if they knew like what it actually was, and then like maybe tried it out or went to a workshop and it found it intriguing. Maybe that would make a big difference perhaps in like the actual statistics we're seeing. Because I know a lot of positions are changing, and at least going to school has kind of let me see how certain departments in film that were used to be like majority male dominated are now actually like flipping over. Like almost every production design major at my school is a woman. And maybe that's a coincidence or maybe it's not. But when we're in the scene shop and they're building their sets, I mean, there is rarely a man in there, and it's a lot of like, so I don't know, maybe things are changing in that regard. And if there were more educational opportunities for intimacy coordination with film students, more men would be involved in that. Yeah,
I don't know. It's very, very, very interesting to like kind of think about that. And I think film as a whole, just especially with like directing, it seems to be very male dominated. But I think that has been changing. I don't know. I don't have any numbers, but you know, unfortunately.
But okay, I don't either.
But no, we are seeing like a change in that. And I remember, I think it was Natalie Portman. She like called out during like the best director thing. She was like, "Oh, here's the all male nominees."
Yeah,
you know, like
she's so awesome.
I know.
Yeah.
Like I think people are like becoming very aware of it.
Definitely.
And I think that's kind of like probably the thing to do. You can't just like overnight be like, yes, we need more, like everyone become a director now.
Right,
like, but you can bring awareness to it, you know?
Totally.
So I don't know. I was just wanted to sort of bring that up because I was just interested.
It is definitely changing, and you know, it's going to take generations to see that, like the practices that are being like provided for all kinds of kids and film students and not film students and independent filmmakers as a very diverse group of people. We're going to see that change in like things like watching the Oscars and at the Academy in it's going to take like 20 years, but it's happening now, especially with people in our like age group. So it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple times getting certified and getting trained to be an intimacy coordinator. What does that process look like? And like, what's the kind of like governing body that gives this training out?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially considering that there is no, like we said, like standard or like regulated, okay, you want to be, an intimacy coordinator. Here's the like union position. Here's how you get certified. Right now, it's basically just private companies kind of like in a way capitalizing on the position and being like, hey, you should get a certification so that people will hire you. But there is no actual required or mandatory certification that doesn't exist yet, which is kind of interesting. And there's only like SAG approved courses, which is, you choose a company that you like or looks good to you. And then you basically like give them all your money. And then you take a bunch of courses. Part of it is almost like textbook, like class lessons, and you're doing things online. But then there's whole other aspects where you're going in person and working in person and then going on sets and different things like that and working with actors in real life. So you get, a very thorough training through, there's 5 or 6 options that are SAG approved. but none of them are unionized. None of them are cheap because they all are private organizations.
Yeah.
And it is also quite a long process. I have a lot of friends who it took them a whole year to get certified. It's not like, oh, you pay for a certification and then you're there. So in a way, that's, you know, a positive that people are getting trained very thoroughly. And then you always have to like kind of like renew your practice, as anyone with a license does in any industry. So in a way, it's very thorough and it's great, but it's not super affordable and isn't really like friendly to people who maybe don't already have an in or don't already have a lot of funding in terms of, you know, wanting to be in the film industry.
Yeah.
You mentioned $7,000. Is that like the going rate for one of these courses or one of these educations?
Yes, it's for specifically like film, because you can get like a theater intimacy coordination certification, and it's not nearly as much. And it's still pretty, like you can use that on film sets, but if you want the official, like, okay, film and TV certification, standard right now is like 7,000. And then it's not even including like maybe other kind of like workshops you want to take and pay for, or, you know, so it's expensive and
so you really have to want to do it to
definitely. It's not like, hey, this is a hobby, I'm gonna try it out.
And there's just no standardization with these courses. It's just like, the SAG approved it, so it's fine.
Yes,
kind of
which is a little bit in a way kind of shady. I remember like paying for my courses and being like, how do I know this is even gonna like A, pay off, or B, legit? And it is legit, and that's great. But it'd be nice to be like, you know, fully secure, and then maybe more people would get into it.
Because I don't know, because like if I took that course, I'm in like from a different company, I could learn like way different things than you learned.
Definitely.
And so we could both just like have like completely different opinions on like what is like permissible on like different sets, and like that seems totally bizarre.
No, that's very true. That's a really good point, actually.
And all of it might be a symptom of the position being like so fledgling. Like when you said like it only got coined recently, I was expecting you to say like, oh yeah, 2005, 2006, like 2022.
Yeah, it's been like what, 8 years now? I mean, seriously, it's a baby. It's truly
8 years.
It's 8 years ago was the first time that it became like a kind of like regulated position. 2022 was when I first started, and it was like 5 years old.
Okay.
That's sorry. I said, I don't know if I explained that well enough earlier. But
no. So closer to like 2017.
Yes.
It was like actually created and coined. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure there were practices before that. Maybe people were doing something on set that was similar, but you know, the title became like a thing then. So
I still don't think it changes what I said though. Like 2017
totally.
is still
it's still very recent. Yeah.
I wonder if that kind of spawned from like Me Too movement, you know?
It
like
definitely did.
That
like
is
where it
came
from.
Alongside it. Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely, that is actually where it originated from, or the time that it originated in. And two women basically like coined the position and pushed for like proper training and things like that. But
that's also interesting too. But I guess that's good. I guess that's good that like it started to become like people were like aware of like, you know, like these things can happen on set, and you should like have someone who's like, you know, to stand against it, you know?
Absolutely. Totally.
But that it's, I don't know, it's kind of upsetting that it's like such a new, like
very new
job. And they've been doing, and like you said, they've been doing sexual films for like ever.
Yes, literally since the beginning.
Like some of the first like photographs, some of the first videos are just of
naked
like,
people. People would go pay to like look through a hole and like look at naked people. Seriously.
No, the history, that's also like really interesting. Like I guess, you know, maybe it's like a more just humans being freaky forever kind of thing. But I don't know. It's all very, very strange.
I heard prostitution is the oldest job to ever exist.
Profession.
There you go.
Yeah.
That I
don't know how true that is, but
I feel like,
well, I've heard that from you.
I mean, Sean Baker would definitely be like,
you?
yes, it is.
It's the greatest profession,
best
according
profession
to
of
him.
all time, besides directing.
It's like the only one to him. He's like, there's nothing else. There's no other films I can make right now. I have to make it about just this one specific thing.
I wonder, like, by the time his next film comes out, we'll have to like test this theory and be like, okay, is he gonna like branch out, you know? And he won't. Like, I know that it's gonna be about a sex worker or sex workers, but for fun, we shall see. We can place bets.
It'll be about two sex workers.
Yes, exactly.
Anora too.
He's already done that, actually, but yeah.
Oh wait, really?
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome. Have you seen like all of his films?
Not all of them. I've only seen, obviously, Anora, the Florida Project, Tangerine. That's the two sex workers. And I know a lot about Red Rocket, but I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to act like I have.
Okay.
But yeah, and he has a few more, I think.
Yeah, Tangerine was flagged by me because like not because of the sex worker thing, but like that was the first big mainstream movie that came out that was shot on iPhone.
Yeah.
Shot on 2 iPhone 5S's, and it looks terrible.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yes, absolutely. You can tell.
Yeah, but if the story is good, like, because that was in like 2015. That was way before it was the time of like, if you get good enough lighting and audio, you can pull it off. This is like,
no,
it looks bad.
There's like the iPhones where you look back at the photos you took on your old iPhone and you're like, oh wow, I can't believe I thought this was like.
Yeah. Oh, I noticed that the other day. I was like, wow, like they really, I don't know, nostalgia maybe is like seriously. Blinding you from like what's actually good. I don't know. It's very, very weird. I did have a question about, yes, when you first saw Anora or like some of these other. Wait, do you know if he had any? Do you know if he had any intimacy coordinators on his other films, or is that just like an Anora thing?
Oh, what a good question. I do not know for sure.
Yeah,
but I have a very strong feeling the answer is no.
Right.
But fact check me on that because I'm not sure.
Throw it up.
Yeah,
and we'll say wrong. Yeah. Big red letter.
Yes, exactly.
And then when you saw Anora, were you aware of the fact that there was no intimacy coordinator when you first saw it?
Yes, I had heard that before going in. So I already had like a chip on my shoulder, which might have kind of like skewed my opinion of the movie while watching it.
Yeah.
And then Mikey Madison came to Dodge for a masterclass because we host like Hollywood Reporter masterclasses, and they just like record the podcast and then throw them up on the website. And she was talking about that experience, and it was, I mean, exactly what she said on Variety, which was that it really wasn't a problem. And I heard her again and I was like, okay, period. But then we screened the movie right before she came out. And the whole time I was like, bruh, like how, because I forgot like how much nudity and sex was in the film. Because when I'd heard there was no intimacy coordinator, I was like, oh, it's probably not that bad. Like there's probably not a lot going on. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Like every other shot is sexual or them having sex. So yeah.
Yeah, because it might be honestly, and it might be like completely genuine coming from her perspective.
Oh, totally.
Too.
Yeah.
Because like I mentioned, a big aspect of it is probably like the other crew, like the cam ops or whatever that are on set, and like for her, I don't doubt that it was probably fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also like an interesting thing is Shaan was the director and producer of the movie, because a lot of the times I would doubt that the option whether to have or not have an intimacy coordinator is decided by the director. It's probably decided by the producer.
Yeah.
But if you're like doing both, it's like, okay, that is squarely on your shoulders, whether or not that's something you want to do.
No, definitely. And that also creates its own like weird power dynamic. On top of already being a director with actors, you're also the producer.
Yeah.
So that's like a whole other level of like you're making all the decisions, which is
and you wrote the thing for her.
There's a lot of layers happening here.
It's not looking good, Shaan.
Yeah.
Not you.
No, hey, it's not looking good. It's not.
I'm gonna pivot this into Sean Baker slander.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Well, the title will be like Sean Baker sucks.
Worst
Here's why.
director ever. And he's really not. Like when he got to accept his award, I was like, oh wait, he seems really nice. But it was just, speaking strictly about his work, it's a little like, I keep coming back to that same feeling that's a little like, ooh. Yeah.
It just doesn't look great.
Yeah, exactly. The facts they're not adding up well.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe he'll learn his lesson. So
we shall see.
Probably
not. I'll see you guys at the next movie about sex workers.
Well, actually, no, maybe not, because he got away with it and now he's got an Oscar.
I was gonna say, and he also won Best Picture. So if anything, he's probably like, again.
Let's go. Anora 2 time.
Yeah.
And then he also won for like editing, and I think, did he get directing too? I don't know if he did.
Wow,
I think he won editing and directing.
He got directing. Dear God, Villeneuve not getting a directing nomination was the biggest.
Don't even get me started on. He's my favorite director.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then Luca not getting nominated for anything either. Oh my gosh, I actually cannot.
Oh, for challengers.
Well, yes, and he's such a. Yeah, I have many a feeling about those two and how they got like nothing. I mean, I know Dune won for
VFX.
Yes, and then also was that it?
Yeah, think so.
I should know this. I think it didn't win for cinematography, notably. I think that was Brutalist.
Oh, yeah. It's weird how it hasn't even been a month since the Oscars, and I'm already forgetting all the...
Yeah, I don't think the Oscars are as once important as they were. I think a lot of people are realizing, like, this is kind of like fake.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's very political.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
It's also pretentious because I think one of the biggest things it is pretentious.
Yeah, it's true.
Also, fun fact: apparently, if you want to sell your Oscar, when you get it, you are contractually obligated to first offer it to the Academy for $1.
Oh, that's really weird.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Is it like recycling, like so that they can give it to the next person?
I mean, it's probably just to like, you can only have it if you've won the award for the arts or something. But like, I don't know.
That's really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't want any dumb normal people to have these
of course.
aluminum gold-plated trophies. Only the whatever.
Yeah.
I think the Oscars originally were like a big thing because it gave audiences a chance to see like actors not acting.
Right.
But now we have like social media, so you could do that. You could open your phone and see someone post about their dog in 2 seconds.
Yeah,
if you
or
wanted
like
to.
Horrible racial slurs that they say in their spare time.
Oh, true. Yeah.
We were talking about yesterday, like Mark Wahlberg, I think.
Oh yeah, Mark Wahlberg. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You have to fill me in.
Oh well, it's a long story.
Okay, for another time.
For another time, maybe after.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, yeah, that's a good point too. I think that Oscars were kind of like and same with like talk shows, because talk shows are kind of dead now too.
Yeah.
It's just because like you don't need to see it. That was the only way you could learn about like an actor or a director or anyone was just through like a talk show.
Yeah. And now it's not really.
Now it's now it's just
now it's very. I mean, watching it from start to finish, which I haven't done in ages, this year was very eye-opening because it was like, wow, this is really dystopian in a way. And it's so obvious that there's only like a certain group of people who are invited. And I don't know, it seems like strangely exhausting now. But when I was a kid, it was really exciting and you could see like all the, stars up there. And the host, he was saying like, the Oscars are for the actors. Everyone wants to see the actors, and that makes a lot of sense. But I think at this point, it's not necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not translating as well as it used to. I think, even though it is giving independent cinema like that stage that it needs, and it always kind of will. It's still. This is the first time in a long time where there hasn't been like a huge upset. So it's also like, oh, the Oscars are fine. But then like, if you go back to other years, it was like, how did that win? Or like this person got totally, like looked over and there's always something.
Slapped in the face.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. Very, it's because I also was the same. I used to watch the Oscars like as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was like exciting. And I would like, try to like, I would my parents and I would do like a little ballot thing and we'd like throw it out.
Yes, totally.
And we'd see who gets the most wins.
Yeah.
I still do that too.
Yeah.
I think that it is something that is good with what's happening now is they are starting to shine a light and kind of highlight the technical roles a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Like with this year with the cinematography and the costume design, and I want to say last year they did like makeup, like a little blurb about each person who was nominated. But I do like that they're definitely doing that and kind of like spreading the flowers out a little more as opposed to just going to the actors and directors.
Totally. It could definitely be used for good. There's a lot of good parts about the Academy, and there's a lot of just like, political, like exhausting parts as well. And that's how it's going to be forever. So, yeah.
Well, I know we're running out of time, but just real quick, sort of like final thing is like, do you have any, I know you do, but do you have any aspirations beyond like just being an intimacy coordinator?
Definitely. I love intimacy coordination. It's something that I feel like I'm just starting my journey with, and it's going to be something that I want to be very, very good at. And hopefully it's going to be my step into the industry itself. But at the same time, as a kid, I wanted to be a director. And I think there's something to be said about keeping that dream in mind. And, whatever it is that you wanted to do, that's like the big thing. You should keep working towards that no matter what you do, maybe while getting there. So hopefully one day I will end up trying to go down that path specifically. But at this point in my life, I think intimacy coordination is really working out for me. And it's something that I want to get very, very good at before moving on. And like everyone else in the film industry who is successful, you can't really tell where you're going to go when you start. And so many people start in roles and positions and then end up somewhere completely different or doing something that they never saw themselves doing, but they ended up being really good at because they tried it. So who knows? I'm saying this now, but I might come back and be like a cinematographer, which I do not see for myself, but you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But totally. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to find you, any projects that you're working on, where can they do that?
Well, okay, like everyone else, I have a LinkedIn, but also I'm very reachable on Instagram, as you know, and I'm totally open to answering DMs, which sounds crazy, but this is networking. This is networking 101.
Yeah, we'll throw it in the description.
Awesome. Yeah. Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone else for tuning in. Anyone who's watching, do all the YouTube bullshit, like, comment, subscribe, and what do we do?
Subscribe for more.
Subscribe for
I don't know.
Subscribe.
We're still like figuring out.
Yeah, we don't know the we don't know the outro formula yet. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and check out this episode that we just did, where we outline a lot of film terms that you need to know about.
Yes.